This is the Get a Life podcast. Ex-Cult Conversations.
Hello, everyone. We are back with a part 2 with Terri, and we've brought another special guest with us, Hunter, and also Lane and Carmen are here. I just read Lane's bottom of the screen.
Look out.
I love it.
That's funny. Anyhow, we are starting today off with a quote because it's very needed today. Oh, it's not there.
Okay, so that one's not very inspirational. Sorry.
Yeah.
It showed for a bigger view.
Is it? What is it showing?
It's just showing a black video screen.
Yeah, okay.
I got pinch out for a bigger view.
Okay, well, it's not coming up, so I will just read it. I really wanted to share it because people like to see things in black and white. Okay, this quote's by Jeff Brown. He is somebody that I absolutely love his quotes. So this came up on my feed this morning. Trauma isn't someone else's story. It's your story too. It's everyone's story, whether they know it or not. We may have found a way to repress it, but that doesn't mean it's gone. It's still in there, running the individual and collective show. Only when we make the conscious choice to unpack it, we will be free. Our ancestors had no choice but to bury it, but because of the foundation they laid for us, we can choose otherwise. We can choose to heal ourselves and them together. We are the pioneers of healing humanity. What a beautiful opportunity. Let's get to work. And that just really set my tone for the day. It's something that I very much believe in. My little pre-rant here before we get into everything is, I guess I just want everyone to understand how hard it is for survivors to come on here and share their stories. How hard it is for survivors to sit in front of a police and have to give a statement. And so I guess my request from viewers and listeners is to be kind to the survivors that come on here. If you haven't lived in their shoes, if you're not in their body, you have no right to lay judgment down on what they went through. And so I think it's just super, super, super freaking important that we as humanity—
We lost you for a second, Cheryl.
Yeah.
Oh, you lost me?
Yeah, just for a couple seconds, just repeat what you were saying.
Oh, it says my internet connection is unstable. I am unstable today. I very much am.
Felt.
Anyhow, I just believe that we as humanity and society need to learn how to support when someone decides to have the bravery and courage to come forward with a story, that we're not picking apart what they think is true and what they think is a lie. Because what someone has to endure from as little as 2 years old, whether it's 30 years old, it is not your choice to go up to somebody or to email someone and judge what their bravery took them to. So I just think that as we are moving forward, you need to cut out the bullshit. You need to cut out the judgments and offer kindness and compassion. I actually have somebody who also lives in Maple Creek, not to do with the PBCC, couldn't come forward with her. She tried, and it was also bashed down. So I guess my thing is leave the judgment to your own home, leave your judgment to your own bedroom. And I don't give a shit what you think there. But if you're coming face to face with someone that is a survivor and has gotten the bravery to make a police report and to come forward, you need to offer them some kindness and compassion, because that's what the world needs more of. Anyhow, with that said, we are back here with Terri and joined with Hunter. Hunter is just new to the show. Hunter, do you want to just kind of give us a brief synopsis of what made me reach out to you, where you worked, and whatever information you want to share with us and with the viewers.
Yeah, sure. So I worked at Cutting Edge probably when I started either when I was like basically just barely 18, maybe 17. I think I had turned 18. It was probably right after I graduated high school. So that would have been probably like either really late 2014 or early 2015. I can't remember exactly when. And then I worked there for about 2 years before I went on to go to university and stuff like that. And I can confirm a lot of the stuff that Terri has said about working there. It was pretty bad on a lot of fronts.
And did you find their treatment towards women very degrading, like Terri did?
I did, yeah. Well, and especially for me, like, especially when I was younger, I was very against doing anything particularly feminine. It was a struggle to get me to wear a dress anywhere. Skirts especially were like not my favorite thing. But I needed a job, you know, and they kind of explained it to you in the interview process that, you know, you have to wear a skirt and stuff. And like, I just thought it was stupid. I just wore pants underneath my skirt, kind of like Terri did all the time. It was very annoying. Like, a lot of the time I would pressure them about it, be like, hey, I'm really uncomfortable wearing a skirt. I don't want to do it. But they were always just like, oh, well, you know, you need to like look professional and stuff like that. Or like, there was a point where I had sprained an ankle and was recovering from that. I needed to be sitting down with my leg elevated all the time. And I talked them into letting me wear pants for the duration of that, just because it was extremely awkward to try to sit down and position myself in a way that was comfortable wearing a skirt and stuff like that. But then it was like, oh, well, you can wear pants, but they can't be like tight pants, or it can't be anything that would be like distracting to the men kind of thing. And it was literally like, I'm like, I just graduated high school and I'm dealing with this shit again. Like, really?
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so like it was always very thinly veiled, but there was a lot of very like sexist stuff that was enforced. They were always very careful about how they worded things and how they did things, but it was very thinly veiled.
The United Nations just did a huge PR push, and I think it was, I can't remember the title of it, but it was basically, it's not what she's wearing, right? And it was pictures of dresses and clothing, and it was like, what she was wearing had nothing to do with what happened to her. That, you know, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing these people that are believing almost similar to the Amish way of belief, like that women can't wear pants, and then to force it on non-member employees is mind-blowing.
Okay.
Sorry, Hunter, go on.
I was going to add that, so the professional things, they always said it's about everybody looking professional.
Which was like so dumb, because we weren't customer facing at all. Like,
no, and we're covered in paint, but
yeah,
there was a woman who showed up for work at one point and she had forgotten to wear a skirt. And I've been there. I was there, like, where I showed up and I'm like, oh shit, and had to go home. Well, she had been dropped off and she didn't have her skirt on. So they made her tie a garbage bag around her waist, and she had to wear the garbage bag around her waist for the day because that looks professional.
So a garbage bag around her waist was considered professional.
Well, a hell of a lot more professional than pants.
Oh my God. These people are the laughing stock of the world.
It was one of the.
Wow. I don't even.
And like how does that factor into religious thinking, right? Like Christianity, like the Lord's up there and he can't look because he sees pants, and the garbage bag is like, good enough. I'll peek through my fingers. Like,
thou shalt wear glad.
We're glad.
Yeah.
Okay, So Hunter, and the reason why I contacted you is I'd come across a comment that you had made it on the podcast, and I right away obviously contacted Terri. I'm like, do you know who this is? So you had made a comment on here that Garth commented on you on your skirt, was it your skirt once, and then you shut it down very fast.
Oh,
can you tell me about that?
So I remember that pretty vividly because it was one of those moments where, you know, in your gut that something is just, you're on kind of shaky ground sort of thing. Like this is a moment of like, if I enable this to continue, it's going to be like probably a reoccurring issue.
Mm-hmm.
And like for reference, I'm gay, not interested in men at all. I was at that age. I was from about the age of 13, 14, somewhere in there. So it was just a moment of like, okay, on several fronts, this is a problem for me. And I was at that age, I was pretty angry all of the time.
Yeah.
I had a lot of frustrations going on. But all I really did was just like, I have a very good resting bitch face. And I just kind of glared him down. Like he's tall. He stands like towers above me. But I just kind of stood there, looked him in the eyes, glared at him, and he commented on my skirt and was like, I just said like cool or something like that, and like blew him off and walked away. And he never talked to me again, really, like outside of something that was like work related. He wouldn't come near me. Him and Alan would both like, they often worked. Am I wrong in that they were over by like where the sanding area is, loading stuff onto the truck a lot of the time?
Yeah. They were there. They were there when you were there. Yeah. They were working there.
Yeah.
They used to work at the back.
Yeah. I know Alan was in the back sometimes too. But they were like, my sanding station was like the closest station to the open doorway where we would load things onto the truck. So like they were there, they would stare at me, whatever. Like most of the time I was like too tired and like hot and stuff like that to really care. I was just like, I just sand my doors and go home. But yeah, I think they just probably got a sense that I was not gonna kind of play ball with them really, because I was polite when I had to interact with them, but otherwise, like I made it pretty clear that I didn't want to talk to them. And
the Mohawks scared them.
The Mohawks probably definitely scared them. Yes, for reference, when I was like at that age, I had at one point a rainbow colored Mohawk, and then later on a Mohawk probably this high off my head that was lime green. So
awesome. That probably freaks them out.
Probably, yeah, and probably a contributing factor.
Love it.
Are you okay, Hunter, if I read your comment that you posted?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's probably typos. It was on my phone.
Oh, that's okay. You cover so much in this and you articulate it very well. And then we can just dive in a little bit more. So there's this, I am experiencing an amount of unfortunate flashbacks to work at Cutting Edge between the age of around 17, 19. I remember Terri talking about the stalking when I was there. I remember what the spray booth looked like. And let me tell you, if some kind of inspector ever came through there, it would have been shut down so fast. It was atrocious. I dealt with nothing like what Terri went through in terms of dealing with Ellen and Garth. Garth commented on my skirt once and I shut that shit down pretty fast. They were admittedly creepy as hell, and they stared at me and the other women in the shop all the time. The amount of shit I knocked over around the shop from my long skirt getting caught on shit, being nonstop on the verge of being ill from the heat in the shop, even though my workstation was near the doors we opened in the summers. I remember them catcalling the water cooler girl, who was, I think, about 2 years younger than me, and being so pissed. But what do you do when there's like one other woman in the shop and all the people you work directly with are in on the behavior? The endless frustration with being demanded you do more, and the endless frustration with trying to follow guidelines for QC and having the literally useless supervisor bring back your rejects that are clearly too poor to send out. So I'd send them, they'd hit QC and QC would bring them back, and then the supervisor would override him too. I remember when I sprained both my ankles outside of work for the second time playing sports, and they threw out the only stool in the shop so I couldn't sit down anymore. I had not asked for a doctor to put me on time off for them to heal because I assumed I would be able to sit down like the previous time I'd had a sprain. My ankles are now chronically in pain from never healing properly because I had to be on my feet nonstop 8 hours a day again. I can't play sports or jog, run because of the pain from the impact. I had breakdowns in the bathroom when they started to demand more and more in terms of quantity from the sanding department, even when we were sanding upwards of like 300 doors per person a day and wanted us doing like 500 per instead of just hiring 1 or 2 more people. I remember threats of them docking pay that I heard about from my Filipino coworkers, but never had directly discussed with me. They also screwed my dumb, barely adult ass out of unemployment benefits by having me sign off that I was quitting, when in reality, they were basically firing me. I was so desperate to get out of there, it didn't even matter. And it's a
You
piss off
cut
because
out again quickly.
oh, did I? What's wrong with my internet today? Okay, I'll go back. They also screwed my dumb, barely adult ass out of unemployment benefits by having me sign off that I was quitting when in reality, they were basically firing me. I was so desperate to get out of there, it didn't even matter. And it's a piss off because I genuinely enjoyed the work itself and was quite content for the first handful of months I worked there. It was all the other shit going on. I literally still have stress dreams where I'm trapped in the shop. And this just shocks me. I also never did a women's course the entire 2 or so years I worked there.
I did one.
Yeah, they kept saying like they were like, oh, it's something we'll get around to and whatever, and it just never happened.
Yeah, never happened. No.
Wow.
And I mean, Hunter and I used to take turns breaking down in the bathroom.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah.
I
feel like every time there was women in the shop, that was like a thing I noticed. After the first like 2, maybe 3 months of working there, it was like a revolving door into the gender neutral bathroom because there was no women's bathroom.
There was no women's bathroom.
There was just a single,
just one bathroom,
one room kind of bathroom for the women to use.
Tell me about the cat calling that went on. I mean, Terry's talked about the air horn and all that kind of stuff, but Hunter, give us your experience with the cat calling that happened.
Well, like, okay, so the doors that I mentioned by where my sanding station was, when they would be bringing in the water jugs to like replace the one that's already on the water cooler and stuff like that, that's kind of where they would come in through. So my station is literally like right there. And the sanding department is kind of right there and takes up that whole area of the shop. And then there's stairs to go up to the break room. And then you can go into the office as well from just kind of right along where you come in that big open truck door. So they would come in through there to deliver the water. And like pretty much as soon as someone noticed that she entered the building, it would be like, I only heard the air horn specifically go off once, maybe twice in the time that I was there. I think they maybe had gotten a talking to at one point about it or something. But then when it wasn't the air horn, then it was like cheering, like aggressively loud, catcalling, cheering, hooting and hollering every time she walked in the door.
The air horn was the signal, and then all of the guys all the way back at the shop would start from the back and all the way to the front, and they would hoop and holler.
So literally like elementary school.
Worse.
No, this is not even high school. Worse than elementary.
Worse. It was worse.
What? Like,
it was
who
worse.
does that?
Oh, absolutely. Like, oh yeah.
It drove me nuts because she was like, I know who she is.
She was 15.
Yeah, she's my brother's age. So if I had been 18, working at the time, 17, depending, she would have been 15 or 16 years old.
Yeah, because you were doing classes there.
Yeah, well, and I had gone back to school is what that was. Like, I had gone back to retake some classes so that I could get into university, hopefully at some point. So
if a male FedEx driver came in, did any of that noise happen?
No. And eventually I think they swapped over to having her not bring it in every once in a while. Like someone else would bring it in for her.
So they can't handle when a woman walks into the shop.
Apparently not.
No, it's a lot. It's a lot for them.
And then, you know what, here's where I get to the point, and you know, like this is where they need to learn about how to treat a woman, right? This is the part in their education that is lacking so bad is they do not have any education on how it is to cohabitate properly with a female. They don't do their sex education in school. So of course, all this pent up energy comes up, and then this is what you get. You get this kind of abuse.
Like just the pant thing alone should be like, oh my goodness, are you kidding me? Like, what day and age are we in? Yeah. Right? Their behavior towards women is just so disgusting, and they can't hide from it. We're gonna keep fucking pulling this shit out.
Oh, slapping on the ass, like
actually physically touching?
Oh yeah. I got slapped on the ass every day I worked there.
Yeah, I think they kind of knew better, I think, than to try that
Garth,
with me.
Garth, he would either slap me with his hand or he'd slap me with one of those things from like almost like Christmas wrapping tube, like freaking, you know? Yeah. When I went by, or like got to the point where I couldn't walk past him, and you had to walk past him to go to the bathroom. You had to walk past him to go to the water cooler. You had to walk past him to go to the office. You had to walk past him to go anywhere. And I wouldn't walk past him. And I finally went into Tim and I was bawling. And I said, you need to handle this, because like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I am so sick and tired of working here. Well, and we had this joke. I can't remember if Hunter was there, where every day I would, as soon as something would go wrong, I'd say like, well, I should have known this day was going for shit. This could all be solved if you started stocking liquor in the first aid cabinet. And I'd always look at Tim and I'd say, Black Label Scotch whiskey, isn't that your drink? And he'd say, yeah, you're right. He said, it's probably because like, and that we would joke about it. I'd say every single day I would say, you'd have to be drunk to want to work here. And every day I would say, you know, you should switch that first aid station to liquor. Everything here would probably go a lot smoother, because like you couldn't get through a day. It was like all day degrading.
Hunter, what do you think needs to happen at that business in order to become a viable business? Because at this point, it shouldn't be up and running.
No, it shouldn't be. No.
There's a lot to unpack there. Like, I wouldn't even know where to start. Like, there's just so much wrong with the whole culture, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Like the whole culture of everybody who's run the place, everything like that. Like, it's all, I wouldn't even know how you go about fixing something like that. Like,
no.
Mm-hmm.
I think charging them with a crime like sexual assault and sexual harassment would be a good start.
Well, yeah.
And workplace safety violations. I mean,
yes.
I mean, like the thing is our ankles, we can't live without our ankles.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, for you to still be suffering from that, that's horrible.
Well, and it was just super frustrating because like I think the month before or a month or two before that, I had sprained my ankles playing roller derby, which is a thing that I was doing back then. And so I'd gone to the doctor. I had like a week off to let it heal or whatever, because I was like, I'm pretty much on my feet, you know, for the whole day that I'm there on cement floors with like one of the little rubber mats to stand on, and it's super uncomfortable. So I had
so bad.
Yeah. So I had my week off for my ankles to heal, and it was fine, except I was still having some issues with them. They hadn't fully healed. So they moved me from sanding like the actual cabinet doors to the back sanding panels, the panels that go into the actual center of the door. And back there, the workstation was a little bit shorter. They had like a stool that I could sit on. And then that's also how I talked them into letting me wear pants for several months without getting in trouble.
Nice.
That was shorter because of me. That was my station.
Yeah. I kind of wondered if that was the case. Yeah.
what I got. We had to, there was a whole process to like cut it short because
Yeah. But yeah, so I just sat back there. I sanded things like on the stool because of the way the workstation was set up. I could kind of like elevate my ankle into one of the drawers almost and just sit like that and sand panels all day. And like I kept up fine. Like I usually ran out of panels and stuff. It's not like it was slowing that part process down or anything like that. And then I'd kind of healed up again. But I was still back there sanding panels, and I was kind of just like alternating between standing and sitting. And then I had gone to an away game somewhere, and I sprained both my ankles in the same weekend, once playing the game, and then I fell down my stairs when I got home, trying to lug my equipment bag down my
I
stairs.
remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
But I was like, like I went to the doctor and he was like, yep, both your ankles are sprained again. What the hell, man? Like, what are you doing? And I was like, it's fine. Like, don't put me off work. I've already got like a situation at work where I can sit down, whatever. I came in, I think I had one day where the stool, or not even one day where the stool was still back there. They had like thrown out the stool at some point while I was away over the weekend.
They made me throw it out.
Yeah. So I had no way to sit, and I hadn't asked for a doctor's to give me time off. I couldn't afford to have time off because I was trying to save up stuff for university and university application fees and stuff like that. So like, yeah, it was pretty crappy. And like to this day, my ankles are really weak. Like I've sprained them a couple more times since then, and they hurt constantly. Winter is like brutal because it's just constant like chronic pain from the cold and stuff like that. And I really, as a kid, I was like, I want the money more than I want the time off for my ankles to heal. Because I didn't think it would be that bad because it's just a sprain. But I really should have gone back to a doctor and gotten another 2 weeks off work or something just to let them heal. But
and you have a very similar story theme that happens with a lot of people that we find that work for the PBCC, where it's like push, do more without hiring more people. So when you quoted that in there, it's like very familiar talk when you talk to people who are working for them.
The teachers as well have said that, teachers that have worked for one school. And I think Bruce Hales is really the one who pushed that in. When he came into power, he was all about business. And then that's when I started noticing that people were working insane hours. Like they would get up at 4:00 in the morning, get to work for 5 a.m., finish at 6, stuff food in their mouths and race to church at the end of the night. And then they started working Saturdays as well and pushing their employees to work insane hours. And I think it all started because Bruce Hales' big money push.
Oh yeah, it was. Absolutely. Because that we saw that like we started working more and more hours. They wanted me at one point. Arden sat there yelling at me in the spray booth because they wanted me to quadruple my production. Quadruple.
That's insane. And meanwhile, what did we learn over COVID, right? We learned that we all need to take a damn break. We need to slow down a little bit, not work insanity hours and kill ourselves. What, to have more material items? Cool.
They had me there at 5:00 some mornings, and I was in there at midnight some nights still.
Yeah, actually, I talked to Chuck Glennie and he confirmed that. We had a little conversation the other day.
Yeah, he used to come in there and check on me because he'd see my car parked there all night, and he'd be like, what if she's in there like hurt? Like she can't possibly still be working. And he would come in there and I'd be spraying.
Holy cow.
Terri, tell us the story about when Tim and Lisa went to Australia and then came back and were.
Oh, it wasn't Tim and Lisa. It was Arden and Tim.
Oh, okay.
I believe went. And Lisa was home. And the kids were kind of like running things a little bit. And Lisa was getting, I think she was doing Zoom calls or video chats with him every night. And she would come in and talk to me every morning and ask me how I was doing. And we talk about the kids and stuff. And she pulled out her phone and she was gushing about the lavish 8-course meals and the opulent, like how beautiful the china was and how expensive the furniture was and how like she was just like, gaga over it. Like it was just, she was just she. And when they came back, that's when they went, oh my God, like threatening to deduct. If we made a mistake on the doors, they were going to deduct it from the cost of the door from our paychecks.
Oh my God.
Do you know if they ever
tried.
did that?
Oh no, they didn't. Because one other employee and I shut that down like right in the meal. I went up against Barry. Barry and I got into words over that and started yelling. And the other one was because we used to break up into little sections, little team meetings amongst the team. And Barry was my supervisor. And yeah, so the other employee was in another group and I heard the yelling from that group too. And the other employee came back after lunch with, he had printed out the whole section from the labor code where it says you can't do that. And Barry he's like, oh, there's ways around that.
Oh, yeah.
And I was not.
And I was like, yeah, illegal ones. I'm like,
exactly.
It doesn't matter how you cut it. It's still illegal. So
do you know who else did that? Deduct from your pay if you fuck up or go against a wall and get shot. Stalin. Stalin did that.
Right?
So this might be like a
you say potato, I say potato.
This is kind of an off the wall question, but Hunter, how do you think the community of Maple Creek views PBCC and Cutting Edge? Like, what is their reputation?
So I can't speak for like Cutting Edge specifically, and I can only speak for like the people that I grew up around and the family that I grew up with. But like, I don't know, generally most people think they're kind of weird, I think. At least like in my family circle and everything around, like we don't really know much about them, but it's always kind of just like they're odd. I think there was a point in time where some of the Plymouth Brethren kids were going to the schools in Maple Creek. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
Okay, because
they went. They went up
very,
to grade 5, I think, at one point.
Yeah, I'm that tracks because I'm fairly sure that there were a few PB kids in my class up until about that age. And it was always like, I mean, the two boys that were in my class we didn't like because they were just kind of rude, I guess is what we'll go with. But there was the one girl that was in my class as well who she was just quiet, she was polite, she was nice, we didn't have a problem. She never gave us a reason to like ever have any problem with her, but the other two would like, one of them tried to push my brother off his bike when we were walking home one day. Or one of my friends, I don't remember the exact details. We were walking home, me and my friend were biking and tried to kick one of us off our bikes. I remember that. But I don't think that's necessarily a reflection of the entire community. I think that one particular guy was just kind of a shithead. But yeah, like it's kind of like even growing up and living in Maple Creek my whole life, we don't know a whole lot about them. Like they're there. We used to like sprint through because like the church is right across the street from the elementary school, and it was kind of like on my route home when I was in elementary school, and we would walk home and whatever, and I'd be carrying this big, like I used to play the euphonium when I was in grade school, so with this big tuba-like case that I'm, lugging around as like a tiny 12-year-old child trying to walk home with it. So we'd cut through the parking lot to get home a little bit faster, and it'd always be like, okay, we have to sprint before someone comes out and like yells at us or gets us or something like that. It was like a thing.
Because it looks like a compound. They all look like compounds.
And this was before the fence. The fence didn't used to be there.
Yeah, the fence wasn't there before. The fence wasn't there before. The kids used to toboggan down when they'd clear the parking lot.
Yeah, because there would be huge snow pile in there. Yep.
Yeah.
So what would your parents say if you came home and said, I'm going to go get a job back at Cutting Edge?
I think there would be a lot more questions before any concerns about why I'm going back to Cutting Edge. There would be a lot more questions about like why I'm back home, period. But I don't think that they would comment on it too much, honestly. Like, most of the time it's just kind of do what you want to do, I guess. Like, we're not going to
Would
stop
you go back and work there though?
No, never.
Yeah.
Literally never. It's like, honestly, working there really like affected how I look at like work as a whole, because it was so stressful and I was so young when I did it.
Mhm.
Like, it's taken a long time for me to even like it's very frustrating, because back then I was like so excited to work. I really liked working there. I liked the job. I liked it was a very physical job on some fronts, because it's exhausting to be standing there sanding things all day. But it was also like a very details oriented job that had almost like a little bit of art to it. And so I really I enjoyed that. But then like just the constant demands for like absolutely more than what we could handle with the staff we had and the tools and the setup that we had and stuff like that. Like, that constant like pushing, and then like almost like gaslighting me about it when I would complain about it to Tim.
Oh my god.
Like,
oh my god, the gaslighting.
Yeah,
They
like that was
love to gaslight.
a big thing. It
Oh
would be
my
like, I would be
God.
like, you guys keep coming down on the sanding apartment about XYZ thing. And at one point I was the only person in the sanding department who had been there for an extended period of time, other than I think like one other guy. And I can't remember what happened, if he was getting bounced around to other departments as well or what. But at one point they had me trying to train new staff that were coming in. And I'm like 18 and a girl, and most of them are not listening to me when I'm trying to explain like how you do things and stuff like that.
Because they told them not to.
Yeah. Well, and I would complain to Tim about it, and Tim would just be like, oh, well, you know, whatever. And then like, or I would complain about like, okay, you guys are coming down on us about like the quantity that we're doing. You're coming down on us about quality, and we're trying to send back these doors that are like terrible quality. They've got knots and like discoloration all over them. But every time I try to do that, it goes to Barry, and Barry just doesn't send it back. Yeah, he just overrides it and is like, no, it's good enough. It's fine. And then it'll get to our quality control guy, and our quality control guy, like 50-50 chance he would just let something slide or bring it back to me and give me shit for it. And I'd be like, talk to Barry. Not my problem. I tried. Yeah, but it's like, it was an incredibly stressful environment to be working in, especially in the summers when it was so hot. I remember we got bees or wasps or something all over the shop. Because we had to have the big door open all the time. Otherwise, you would just boil in there, and even that barely helped.
Well, it was, the wasps were really bad in the bees, because the bees come for the sawdust before the pollen.
So we would have just swarms of like bees in the shop, and all over the sanding stations, because we're like right there, and there's lots of like little kind of nooks, and there's UV lights that they were like really attracted to, because the glue that we're scraping off the cabinet doors has a UV formula in it, so so that we could see it when we're like scraping it off. So there would be bees like all over the place. It was a thing. It was stressful.
me walking around with my EpiPen going blue to the sky, orange to the sky.
Yeah.
Say it with me.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was just, it was a really stressful environment, especially as one of my first, like not my very first job that I ever did. It was like the second place I'd worked. I'd worked out at the cattle sale ring in town off and on. But
different pile.
Well, honestly, the sale ring wasn't bad. Not in the area that I was in. Yeah. I just chased cows all day, and I was happy with that. So
cows don't gaslight.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
one thing I was wondering is, when you guys worked there, did you ever have times where all the brethren members would disappear for like a fellowship meeting or something like that? Like that's what they called them in the church, where you guys were expected to keep working, but they were like gone to a church gathering?
Probably
they would go to weddings. They would go to weddings. They would go to funerals. They would go to, they would have like meetings when they had their big meetings here, and we would have to stay working. They would leave at like 2. They always leave at like 2 or 3, and we would have to stay working, and we would have to like make our quota even without them there.
So like
And
half
then-
the shop is missing, and we were like expected to maintain the same level of
Yeah.
production. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So what I'm wondering is whether Brethren members pay their own employees while they're off doing churchy shit.
Yes.
Right? And because they're getting way more time off. Because I know other events, they have one a month that they were probably going to events all the time, right? And then their non-member employees are expected to keep working,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
See, and I didn't even notice really when they left because my department was predominantly non-brethren. It was
And they
mostly,
wouldn't tell us. And
yeah,
they wouldn't tell us.
yeah.
They were
You would
leaving.
just, I would like
Just
wander
be
to go get,
gone.
I would like wander to go get new sandpaper for my sander or something, and just realize that like half the people in the shop are gone.
People are gone.
So Hunter, did you ever, I know they tell you can't compare your pay, but did you ever discuss pay? Did you find out if you were getting paid the same as all the men that were in the shop?
Probably not, because I was getting the absolute bare minimum for Saskatchewan at that time, which I think was about $10.50 an hour.
Wow.
Maybe $11. I'm not sure. It just kind of
Yeah.
depends. But it was like maybe like 20 cents above minimum wage or something like that.
Yeah. And I think I was at $13.75.
And you'd been there for like way longer.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah, there was
No,
never any raise or anything like that either.
I wrote the training manual for them. For Sanders. I wrote the employee handbook.
And one of the things that we had a lot of questions about after we did Terry's other podcast was about the lacquer, those big 5-gallon buckets and the stain buckets and all of those. Did you guys, were they put in a secure area, like where children
No.
couldn't get them? Or
No, I think those are just sitting out in the shop, weren't they? Like pretty much like right behind QC, if I'm remembering correctly.
That's
they were
against
stacked.
so many WHMIS
They were
regulations.
stacked.
Yeah.
you've seen the
Yeah,
picture.
they were
well,
just
they don't do
stacked
women's
out in the open.
courses.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
then
my
when
job,
the-
because it was
when
my
they
job to
threw
empty
the
them
buckets
and bring them in.
outside, when they threw the buckets outside, were they ensuring there was no stain or varnish or anything left in there that could like drain into the environment?
I don't
Like
think
drip
so.
pans? Was there drip pans everywhere for the buckets?
No, absolutely
no.
not.
They're not one. Rags,
Bastards.
dirty rags, oily rags.
That does remind me of like one other like big thing that was a chronic issue for me was we would have these, I don't know if they were like vinyl panels, but those really big heavy ones that they would be almost like a plasticky edging along them. And so
The veneer.
yeah. So I would have to scrape the glue and like the panel stuff off of that with a knife. But sometimes you got a lot of glue that wasn't coming off. So they would give
The
you
next gen doors.
they would give you a paint thinner to take that off. I was using it without gloves, like barehanded, no mask.
We all were.
I would get so high basically off
Oh,
of
yeah.
like inhaling that. The one day it made me like so sick. And then after I had finished with like the order of doors that I had gone through with, I just went back to doing my regular doors. And while I was scraping glue off of a door, I was like so out of it. And so like my hands were shaking. I actually stabbed myself in the hand, like in the wrist with one of the chisels. And I've still got a tiny little scar there. But at that point, I just said like, I'm going home. Like,
Yeah.
I walked into Tim's office and was like, hey, I'm messed up. I'm leaving. Was basically how it went. And I just left. Like, I don't think we really even had a conversation about it. I was like,
Wow.
I've inhaled
We'd
too much
spend
paint thinner.
Hours.
Yeah.
Hours and hours of paint thinner. It was you. Lisa did it when
Yep.
Lisa, Monica, Melanie was doing it for a while. We were doing it. We would literally, like, there were days when we would take turns vomiting outside the door.
Oh my God. So they literally don't give a shit about their employees, except for the brethren ones, their employees' safety and health. Absolutely zero regard. And
Zero
regard for the
Zero.
environment. And yet
Zero.
they claim to be a mainstream Christian church. They're so far from it, not caring about the environment and not caring about human health. And I know why they don't care about the environment. Because I remember the teaching. So the teaching was that they thought if the environment goes to hell, that's just proving that Revelations is real. So they actually don't give a shit about the environment. I'm serious. Because they're like, the environment is going to hell, but the world's going to hell anyway. And Jesus is coming to save just us. Yay! So we don't care. And that's a terrible way to live.
Yeah. It is. It's horrible.
Terri, I want to switch lanes here with something that you told me after you did your podcast, and I was like, wow, I was just shocked. It had to do with a message that was written on a conveyor belt after Janelle left the church.
Yeah.
You want to, tell the story, tell the viewers what happened.
So when Janelle left the church, she came in to work. I'm assuming she had just been shut out. I don't know what led up to there, but she was coming to work anyways.
Good
so
for her.
she showed up in her work clothes, in her skirt and her work shirt, and they told her she couldn't come in. And she basically was yelling at them. I love teen Janelle. And she basically told them that it was illegal, that they couldn't fire her because of her religious views.
Yeah.
And they got into a big argument, and I think there was something to do with her car, because she had a sports car there, and she had bought that with her own money, like separate. And I think they were trying to tell her she couldn't take her car, but I can't confirm that for sure. It's been it was a long time ago. We're talking like 2004-ish, I think. But then I remember her just screaming and swearing at them the whole time. And she just walked and she got into her car and she drove off. I think it was that afternoon or maybe the next day when we came back in, Janelle is a slut was written all over was written on the wide belt, and that stayed there until they got rid of that machine.
It stayed there?
Seriously, this is what I'm just
there?
telling you. Like, when you told me this, my mind was blown that Tim Bond,
because I ran that machine when she left, and I looked at that.
Tim Bond, the leader of Maple Creek PBCC, so he takes the lead there, is what I've been told, allowed that to stay on a belt for everybody that's coming in and out of that. How fucking professional is that?
That's disgusting. Tim Bond, you're disgusting. You disgust me. That is awful.
Yeah.
Like, my heart broke for Janelle when you said that to me, because I mean, she's such a sweet girl. Yeah, she's feisty. She needs to be feisty.
She was feisty. I mean, I remember when she came into work and she'd cut her hair and she put highlights in and she had pierced her ears. And that was not that long. I think that was maybe only a week or so, probably, before all this happened. Maybe. I'm trying to think back, but it wouldn't have been that long. And she was just so feisty, and she was like, they were telling her to take him out. I'm not taking him out. Not taking him out. Like, yeah. So she was like feisty, but good for her. Nobody ran that shop like Janelle. I mean, honestly speaking, like, she was probably their number one all-time like production person. Like, she did it all in that shop before she left. And yeah, but she was, but I mean, I stayed close with her. I stayed friends with her beyond that. Like,
when
years.
She was there, her dad passed away. I don't know what year that was. How was that in relation to when they got rid of her?
It was very shortly after. Because I remember, it was not that long after, because I remember her stopping at her dad's grave before she left town. Like, I held her when her dad died. Like, I remember the day he died, and she came in and she told me, and like it broke her heart.
Yeah.
And she worked through that because they made her work through that.
They didn't give her any time off for grieving?
Not that I remember. No.
See, this is what I want the listeners to know, is that how they treat people, right? It's absolutely insane that they think that they can treat people this way and call themselves a mainstream Christian church.
And this was a young lady that Janelle Drever, she was the youngest of 8 children. So
11,
she would have been,
I thought it was more than 8.
11 or 12.
it could be, I'm just shooting in
I
the dark.
thought,
I don't
maybe.
actually
Yeah,
remember, but
maybe
she
with
was
the
the
parents.
baby of the family. She
Yeah,
was
she
so
was.
attached to her, to her dad. She was a daddy's girl, always was. Yeah.
We need to
It's one
get
of
this
the-
to the authorities that these people, because we know that this has happened multiple times, right?
Oh,
A brethren
yeah.
member decides to leave or gets kicked out, right?
Mhm.
And then they get fired from their job, which is illegal because that's firing
Illegal.
someone based on religious grounds. And it happened to me. My dad pushed me out, right? I had to work from home, and then all of a sudden my job was just gone, right? And that was because I was withdrawn from, as they call it. So this has happened multiple times. We need to get the authorities involved.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
Illegal.
I agree that the authorities need, especially with cutting edge, they've got to get involved. And I mean, I'm sure they're watching these podcasts. We know they are, and they're going through the list of everything that we're talking about and making it all clear in their shop. And I mean, Tim, you can clean it up as much as you want, and you should for your staff that are there. But the biggest thing that happens with the PBCC is that you can clean it up in there, but you need to take accountability for the past. It is why we are bringing the past, slapping it down in the present, so that everybody can have accountability. It has to. Just because you change something and go on with your life, you still have to turn around and talk and take accountability for those people that it affected. There's a lot of people, right, that get caught up with us dwelling on the past and, you just got to let it go, Cheryl, let it go. No, you don't let shit go, because how do you change your future if you don't lift up the past, look at what happened, dissect it, and then be like, okay, when people have felt like there's been accountability taken a hold, like that's all I'm asking for. Bruce Hills just needs to call me. Just call me, Bruce. I'll have a conversation with you.
Me too.
That's all that, it's just accountability. That's what accountability looks like, right? Anyhow, I'm going to get lost in that rant. There's something else I wanted to bring up, Terri, because we did not get through everything last one. And so I've made notes so that we get through some of the stuff here.
Yeah.
You were telling me about at a time when Garth came to you. I mean, I know he always would take your phone and he'd watch porn on it, but
He would ask you.
yeah. So he came in one time and he had asked, I'm talking about the story when he'd asked you to lay naked with him because he was watching stuff with his cousins that were up from the States, that they were watching this. Obviously he was watching porn. Go ahead and tell us this story.
So
so cringe.
That's when he came at me in the spray booth. And he asked me if I would lay down with him. Or no, he said that cousins had come up from the States to visit, and they had brought magazines with naked pictures in it of men and women laying down together. And he asked me if I would lay down with him naked, like in the pictures.
That is so fucked. The way he described a porn mag, his description of a porn mag should ring a million alarm bells.
Yeah.
And in
Go
a
on,
workplace,
sorry.
that has no place in a workplace ever.
No, you will be fired faster than shit. Like this is. That's so
They
creepy.
were glad to get rid of someone who had chosen not to walk with them. they were glad to kick her out of a job. The youngest of however many children, whose father had just passed away. And yet you've got a young guy there that's discussing porn mags and propositioning another worker in their shop, and they do nothing about it. Tim Bond, that is ridiculous. Where is your head? You're not a mainstream Christian business. That's ridiculous.
And Alan and Garth hit on me on the same day. Like, on the same day.
Oh, they need to be locked up. That's just my personal opinion.
Oh, they do need to be locked up.
That just makes you nauseous to think.
And it's literally the same language. Like, he used the same language. It was the same MO. It was the same, like, would you be my special friend? Like, just
oh, that makes my hair want to stand up. Like,
creepy.
Oh.
And did you not tell me that Tim's young kids would come into the shop and Arden's kids would come into the shop and spend time in the shop? Was that you that told me that? Yeah. So why would you bring your children and put them in this kind of an atmosphere? Obviously, he has no judgment of it because he's exposing his children to it. That's why it carries on generation after generation after generation. There is no judgment of it. You allow it in your workplace. You act on it in your workplace. This is your leadership style. And you tell me you're leading a mainstream Christian church? I don't think so. There's nothing mainstream about porn. Nothing.
And to those people that think Ellen and Garth are not the church, yeah, they are. They belong to the same church. Yeah. This is pedophile that we're talking about. This is sexual harassment. This is, yes, it is a part of the church. Absolutely, it is a part of the church, especially when their boss is leading that church.
Yeah. And you're allowing this culture in your workplace. You're exposing your very own children to it. Shows you have no judgment of it.
Their children were doing it.
Yeah.
Right along with them.
I'm absolutely horrified. I really thought better of Tim and Lisa than that.
Training little narcissists.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. There was another thing that we didn't touch on last time is when you had started growing your hair out. I just want to kind of just round up all the comments Ellen would make to you about, when your piercings were out and you had long hair and when you had gained some weight. Do you want to talk on about that? Do you want to?
Oh my God. He would come in every morning. It was the first thing he would do. He would go in, he would come in, he'd visit me and stop into the spray booth, put his arm around me, put his hand on my shoulder, hand on my back, whatever. And of course I'm locked in the spray booth. My back is to the door. I face like the wall. So my back's to the door and you can't hear anything because you're wearing ear protection. And it's so loud in there, like deafeningly loud. So you can't hear anybody come up from behind you. So, I mean, I used to lock myself in there with bungee cords. So he couldn't come in. But he would come in and remark about my hair. Oh, you're growing your hair long. That's good. That's the way, you should. So I shaved it off. He noticed that my piercing, I didn't even know when I had lost it, but it had been a while, obviously, because it had closed in. And he said, oh, I'm so glad you don't have the piercing, the metal in your face anymore. He's like, I'm glad you took my advice and got rid of it.
Took his advice. The arrogance, the fucking arrogance.
He told me to take my piercings out. He told me to grow my hair long. He told me to dress differently. He told me, like I said, when I went camping with my boyfriend and took an extra day off for the weekend, I came back to work and he said, I thought we had something special. How could you step out on me?
What? Wow. And then when you gained weight, what did he tell you to do?
So then I was gaining weight because I was on so many steroids. I was having injuries. I was there with stitches in my hand. I was there. I worked on broken feet. I worked with casts on my hand. I worked with IV in my hand. I was on steroids, covering all of the injuries. And so I started gaining weight, and he was getting a little fat there. You better start walking. It's starting to get out of hand.
Meanwhile, this man is how many pounds himself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tree. Yeah, so that kind of stuff. Yeah, so when you remarked about the piercings, I got more piercings. I think I threw in a tattoo, another tattoo.
And what there was, so at the around this kind of time, right? So his wife had gotten sick. I just want to kind of go with your belief, like what it felt like for you. You had mentioned like you felt like they were grooming you to be his wife.
It felt like that. Like,
yeah.
I remember him saying something about his wife, and I remember Bev, I think that she was quite sick, that his wife was quite sick. And then he started showing up at my house, and knocking on my door, following me to the pharmacy, following me through the grocery store, like everywhere. He went everywhere. When I left work for any reason, Alan was behind me in his van, and he waited outside everywhere I went, and he showed up at my door asking to help me. I can help you. If you would just let me in, I can help you. I can take care of you. Yeah. So, yeah, it was, yeah.
He's a predator that needs to go to jail.
Yeah, he is.
That's just my opinion. I have to say that.
Yeah.
Say that.
I
Just
agree.
my opinion.
I agree. So Hunter, when you worked there, at any point, did you ever see OHS come in and
Inspect the place or do
Yeah.
anything? No, never.
yeah. OHS needs to go there, and they need to catch them without it, them knowing that they're coming. Yeah, I
Mhm.
agree.
Yeah, because they do call ahead of time
Yeah, they should. And they need
when
to
they're
just show up there.
when they're just doing a regular inspection, unless there's like a report or an incident. Yeah, they don't.
They need to be
But
a
they will.
company that has cameras installed and that the government has access to those cameras all the time, like they do on their people.
Yep.
Mhm.
They need to have cameras everywhere throughout that building, except bathrooms, of course, and have it with audio too, so you can hear their fucking comments.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
Okay. Well,
And yet, you know what gets me really bad too is some of these brethren businesses have the audacity to come to people and be like, "Don't use the Lord's name in vain in our building. Don't use. You can't say Jesus Christ, right? Yeah, they can write, is a slut on their shit,
right.
Yeah.
I actually had talked to a couple insiders regarding swearing, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I've
Oh,
got
I'm
a
gonna
bad
talk
mouth.
about it
Lane's
after.
got a bad mouth.
Oh yeah.
Anyhow, and I both the insiders that I talked to told me that like the amount of swearing that happens in there, that what I say on a podcast is nothing compared to
Nothing.
how they talk.
Nothing.
And like,
Mm-mm.
I mean, using the C word and everything. I mean, that's even something that in my mouth I don't throw out unless I'm really angry. And the C word's not cult.
The other
No,
C
but
word.
but again, in Australia, they throw it out like bro, right? So it's just
They
it's
do.
where
I mean,
you
there's
are.
actual video with Australian members saying that word.
But my
100%.
point is, if people
I'm
get
married
upset,
to an Aussie. I can yeah.
yeah, there you go. My point is, if people get sensitive ears, right? Sensitive ears.
Mhm.
I just want to explain to them that sometimes when you stub your toe, frickin' gosh darn it just doesn't cut it. It just doesn't cut it. And in the real world, I know in the church they say friggin' and frick and oh my goodness and gosh darn it and stuff. But in the normal world, if you go around and say those swear words, people are going to look at you and be like, are you okay? Is everything going? You meant fuck, right? You meant fuck. Why are you just hollering at something else? We know what you meant. Anyway.
Anyhow.
Oh, I had another joke about the church because someone pointed out to me that the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church actually has broken many Guinness World Records. Because so they once every couple of months they have 3-day meetings, they call them. So it's 3 days of church meetings and they invite people from all over the world. There's hundreds of people there. And all the people between the age of 18 and 25 that aren't married are all virgins, like all of them. So this is the biggest gathering of virgins in the world. Happens in the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. You're fucking losers. Sorry.
But I just say that number's probably not that high. But
Yeah.
No, they definitely are people breaking that rule, but that is one of their big sacrilegious rules. Like, do not have premarital sex because you go straight to the bad place.
Oh yeah, the bad place.
And then they wonder why they have such issues with sexual deviance and fucking pedophilia, right? Because you people are so just weird about fucking sex and so insane about it that you have turned it into this terrible thing where you have people that are becoming sexual deviants and predators, and they're going to go to jail.
It's because it's an obsession.
No, and I think that's probably why that, you know, in Cutting Edge's experience, right, where the cat calling comes from and the air horn comes from, and you know, because those men are not taught at all on what's going on in their body, right? And there's no way to express it in any way. Yeah.
Like, let me explain it to some brethren members that might be in there listening. Okay. It's not what she's fucking wearing. It's where your eyes and mind are going. And if you can't control yourself, that is a you problem. You need to go maybe to the bathroom and watch some fucking porn. Okay. Sort yourself out because something's wrong with you. Not the girl, you.
Borrow your cousin's magazine.
There you go.
Oh, that's a good one. Anyhow, okay, we should probably wrap this up. Hunter, is there anything else you want to add?
Not really. Like I said, I don't have anything like particularly crazy like what Terri.
Oh no, what you went through was crazy, love.
Yes, it was. And thanks tons for sharing. Thanks tons for coming on.
We're very grateful to have you on. I was really appreciative that you came on here and got to be able to tell your side of things and also support what Terri went through. Terri, again, we're so grateful that you came on, and you're not going to be any stranger to the show. You know that.
I know.
Yeah. Anyhow, okay. Thank you guys very much for joining us today. And thanks everyone for listening. Until next time.
Cheers.
Much love to you all.
To share your story or be a guest on the show, email info.getalife@proton.me.